Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm thrilled to welcome you to Keeping It Brief, a service of the Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition. I'm your host, Jill Schweitzer. Our guest today is Melissa Reed, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood Keystone. Today, Melissa will give us an update on reproductive rights nationally, in Pennsylvania, and locally. This midweek, mid-gathering on Zoom will be your monthly opportunity to get quick updates on important current issues of our partners or issue specialists in the following. I want to begin with a quick note about our technology. When you joined the event, your microphone was muted and your camera was turned off. While you can see and hear us, nobody can see and hear you. Relax, grab your lunch or snack, and enjoy today's conversation. Thank you for providing us questions with your registration. Melissa will be addressing these questions in her discussion today. Now, a little bit about us. The Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition is a nonpartisan coalition of individuals and organizations that envision a socially just and respectful society. We were founded in 2008 and designated as a nonprofit in 2015 to educate and advocate for gender equality and economic security for all. We are thrilled to call more than 300 individuals and nearly 50 organizations our partners. By working together, we can speak with one voice and make that one voice more powerful as we work for systematic change. A few notes before we get started on today's conversation. This afternoon's conversation is being recorded. Give us a few days and you'll be able to link it in on our website. Our next newsletter will also include a link on this recording. Please take a few minutes to visit our website at bcwac.org for more information about this organization, to read our blogs and opinion pieces that have been published statewide, to track legislation, and to sign up to receive emails so you know who to contact for our elected officials about pending legislation. You can also follow us on both Facebook and Insta. The links are on our website homepage. Please like us and share our posts that you like. Today's program, like other educational programs we offer, is free. While we operate efficiently, we do have costs. If you feel like this program and the work of this coalition is of value to you, please consider making a financial contribution. You can do so through our website at bcwac.org or by mailing a check payable to the coalition at P.O. Box 248, Doylestown, PA 18901. I'm really excited to welcome Melissa Reed. Thank you for joining us. Today, the Supreme Court will hear arguments or are hearing arguments for Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, a challenge to the Mississippi law that bans abortion at 15 weeks of pregnancy. With today's hearing, as well as other challenges to Roe versus Wade, can you give us an overview and an update on these challenges?
Yes, I certainly can. And let me just start by saying just how emotional this day is for me, and I'm sure for many of our activists and staff members around the country, knowing that 50 years of precedent could be overturned and that politicians believe that they have better decision-making skills than people who are pregnant and should be involved in those deeply personal decisions. So it's hard. Attacks on Roe have really ramped up. They began to ramp up in 2011, and this occurred concurrently when anti-abortion politicians made massive gains in federal and state elections. And this year alone, 600 plus bills to restrict access have been introduced in this country. More than 100 abortion restrictions have been enacted into law just this year. And in some places, in fact, abortion has always been almost impossible to access. So let's be clear, the promise of Roe is really just the baseline. When people of color, low-income people, minorities, immigrants, and young people have always had a very difficult time accessing abortion, that it's been really out of reach. But these additional restrictions, and if Texas's Senate Bill 8 and the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban is allowed to stand, then the impact is going to be even greater. So in the arguments today, just to sort of summarize for people briefly on what was discussed today at the U.S. Supreme Court in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, Mississippi passed an unconstitutional ban on abortions after 15 weeks gestation. This is in clear violation of Roe. If it were to be allowed to stand, nearly half of women of reproductive age in this country will be without access to abortion. Nearly half of all women. And then in addition, other people who have uteruses and can become pregnant will lose access to abortion in this country. The state of Mississippi, in their arguments and in their briefs to the U.S. Supreme Court, specifically asked not just, can we have a 15-week abortion ban? They asked, it's imperative that you overturn Roe completely and take it back to the states and let states decide, let people decide. And never before have we said it's okay to hand constitutional rights of individuals over to public opinion, right? So it's profoundly disturbing. And quite frankly, there's no middle ground. So in the arguments today, Justice Roberts kept trying to focus on just the 15 weeks and what's the big deal with 15 weeks. And the Center for Reproductive Rights clearly said it would be cutting access in half. It would be moving the line back to a very restrictive point. And again, it really puts women's lives at risk and our bodily integrity at risk. So we'll find out in April, between April and June, but likely the end of June, what their decision is. But from the arguments today, it seemed like this conservative majority on the court would uphold the 15-week ban and in fact, eliminate Roe. So that's one really important thing I think we all need to keep in front of mind today. So the other law that's really been impacting people very significantly since it went into effect October 1st is Texas's Senate Bill 8. And many of you probably have heard about Texas Senate Bill 8. So this was another blatantly unconstitutional ban. It took effect September 1st, sorry, not October 1st, but this ban was at 6 weeks pregnancy, 6 weeks gestation. And so it's before many people even know they're pregnant, right? Like far before people know they're pregnant oftentimes. And so they said if a fetal heartbeat was detected, then no one was eligible to get an abortion in Texas. But this abortion ban, this law, it went even further, Jill. It had a bounty in it. So under this law, anyone anywhere in the United States can sue anyone who helps a patient in Texas access abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. So I'm a person who is 7 weeks gestation, early in my pregnancy, just found out, and I called to make an appointment. The person who answered the phone made the appointment could be sued for $10,000. And then I took a taxi to get my abortion, and the taxi driver could be sued for $10,000. And the doctor who performed the abortion could be sued for $10,000. So it awards $10,000 for every lawsuit. And the any objections, like if I were to say, if I was the taxi driver and try to countersue, I would be responsible for all legal costs for both parties. And there's no limit. There's no limit to the number of lawsuits. So it's outrageous that the state of Texas put a bounty on people who help folks get an abortion in that state. And so since September 1st, thousands of Texans have been either forced to carry a pregnancy against their will or have been forced to go out of state and travel. I mean, Texas is an enormous state, travel hundreds and hundreds of miles at significant cost to access their constitutional right to abortion. And the Supreme Court has not acted, and has remained silent, despite the Department of Justice weighing in, despite abortion providers weighing in, activists weighing in. So they're still silent. And so we don't know whether or not they are going to stop the ongoing harms to people in Texas or not, or when we're going to hear about that. So that's sort of the federal landscape. There are a lot more laws making their way up to the US Supreme Court, even as we speak, but those are the two that are, right there in front of us right now. So, just sort of to think about, so how does that impact Pennsylvania, or like what's happening in Pennsylvania? What about people get pregnant in Pennsylvania? Of course, now my dog is barking, but that's all right. So
Your dog's upset too.
my dog, she's female, she's very upset. Anyway, so what's happening in Pennsylvania is that we are also seeing significant abortion restrictions being introduced in our legislature. We had unprecedented abortion hearings being held in the House Health Committee last year, where that committee spent several days making outrageous statements about the safety and efficacy of abortion, false claims about it, to push their anti-abortion agenda. And quite frankly, decisions about abortion should not be being made at the state capitol, right? They should be made in our exam rooms, between individuals and their doctor, and between their partners. So anyway, Pennsylvania has a number, including a Down syndrome abortion ban. They have a fetal remains bill, which would require that any fetal remains from any length gestation, whether it was from a miscarriage or whether it was from abortion, would need to be cremated or buried. We heard last week now that there are some legislators in Pennsylvania who are interested in introducing a constitutional amendment to ban abortion. And so our Pennsylvania legislators are actively working to ban abortion here or to reduce access. There's 6-week abortion bans as well, bans on telemedicine abortion. So what's important, I think, for people to know is abortion is still legal. It's still accessible across the country, and in Pennsylvania, that Planned Parenthood Keystone is doing everything we can to increase accessibility in Pennsylvania. Not only have we added abortion to some of our health centers that didn't used to have access to abortion, but we are now providing telemedicine abortion, and we are also providing MIFI by mail across the state, so people can get medical abortion by mail in Pennsylvania. So I do want to make sure that people know it is still accessible here. And then,
Melissa, can you explain to us, you talked about a couple of initiatives that were on the books right now for the state of Pennsylvania. If somebody wants to know the specifics, again, to be more articulate when we contact our legislators, where would they find all of the information about what's going on in Pennsylvania so that they can, again, address in an articulate way all of the concerns that they have?
So Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates is our electoral and lobbying arm in Pennsylvania, and they have all the bill tracking and information on their website. So that's Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates.org, and people can find out whatever they need to know and how to take action, which legislators introduced the bill, where it is in the process. I mean, the good news is we have Governor Wolf, who's promised to veto any abortion ban that lands on his desk, for which we're very grateful. So, we're just hopeful that we will continue to have an executive in Pennsylvania who will continue to ensure that access remains available.
So on this website, it outlines all of the bills, who introduced it. Does it also give the voting history of our legislators so that voters would know that?
So it does have a hyperlink to the bill, and that'll take you to the Capitol, and then you click on the bill and you can see the history on that website, the state legislature website.
Thank you. Now, going from Pennsylvania to locally, what can we do locally in Bucks County, and what are you seeing as some grassroots rumblings that could concern us, as well as things that we need to advocate here in Bucks County?
Well, I really appreciate you asking that, Jill, because I think a lot of people don't realize that the attacks are not just at the state legislature, that they're not just in our nation's capital, but they are existing in local cities, counties, school districts, happening across the country. Some cities have passed ordinances to say they're a sanctuary city, to ban abortion from occurring within their city limits. They have done that where abortion centers already occur. And so we're fighting those. We've also found that our opposition has been growing outside of our health centers, that they've become emboldened and a lot more aggressive in confronting our patients and confronting our staff and causing public safety hazards. And so there's work being done to try to increase buffer zones around health centers to provide a safe space, a buffer for our patients to be protected from some of the harassment that they're receiving from opposition. And then even right here in Bucks County, we saw people in school board races and so forth really attacking not only Planned Parenthood, but our services to the LGBTQ youth community and our sex education programs and our longstanding Rainbow Room program. So our opposition and people who are opposed to bodily integrity and people who are opposed to making those personal decisions about abortion without interference have really been active through all levels of our government, from the school board all the way to the White House and the Supreme Court, to try to interfere and to try to stop people from having access to the care and the support and the information they need to make healthy decisions.
So what I'm hearing is, although abortion is the undercurrent in a lot of the controversy or the fights right now, it is penetrating all sorts of different areas, such as the LGBTQ community and comprehensive sexual education, understanding and ensuring that everybody in our community is feeling respected and that they have an opportunity to express themselves. So I'm hearing that it's way beyond the single issue.
Well, you're right. And let's be clear, Roe, the finding in Roe in 1973 was based on Griswold from 1965. And what the Griswold case was whether or not people, unmarried people, had the right to access contraception, right? So fortunately, the Supreme Court said sure, and they based that on the right to privacy, right? And so then Roe said that right to privacy also includes abortion. And then in Lawrence v. Texas, which was a case that the Supreme Court heard in the 80s regarding same-sex partner intimacy and whether that could Texas, good old Texas, had said that that was illegal to have same-sex partners. So in Lawrence v. Texas, they also said that right to privacy protects adults in intimate relationships, right? Get out of their business. And that's also right to privacy has been used for to allow same-sex marriage. Like that right to privacy is a thread that that judicial scholars and attorneys have used for decades to underpin people's constitutional rights. And so if they say with Roe, there's no right to privacy, that was wrongly decided, that's not there, it's not specifically said in the Constitution, then all of these other things could be at risk.
Right. So now more than ever, supporting Planned Parenthood is just such an important thing for all of us that our advocates can do. Can you just outline for us as briefly as you can, because I know the list is very long, some of the services that Planned Parenthood offers our community?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So of course, we're proud to provide abortion, which we've been talking about a lot today, but we provide a full spectrum of sexual and reproductive health care, our education, sex education programs I mentioned, but also a full range of contraceptive care, STD testing and treatment, well woman exams, which includes breast exams and pap smears, testicular cancer screening. We do menopause care. We provide PrEP and PEP, which are HIV prophylaxis medications. And I am so excited that on November 1st, we launched our gender affirming hormone therapy care. And I was so excited to finally roll that out. And that's also, I should point out, is available through telehealth. And so people do not have to come into one of our health centers to access that care. So regardless of, if you're in Tioga County or Bucks County, regardless of how rural you are, whether you have transportation, you can access that care. And in fact, we've done so much to push out a lot of our care through telemedicine to make it easier. COVID was COVID, of course, is terrible, right? But what it forced us to do was reimagine the delivery of care and how could we make it as safe as possible for people to get access to. And so that really challenged us to expand access to care through telemedicine, and we're continuing to do that. So like I said, gender affirming hormone therapy is now available that way, birth control, and even abortion. And another thing I wanted to share with people is we also have a mobile app. It's called PP Direct for Planned Parenthood Direct. And it's a free app and you download it on your phone. And then through that app, you can get birth control pills, patches, rings, emergency contraception, or UTI treatment just through your phone and have whatever you need delivered right to your doorstep within 48 hours.
I know also available at Planned Parenthood is a wealth of really informed counselors that can provide all sorts of, I would love the community to know that you're so much more than just one single issue, and the amount of counseling that people have received from your organization has just been life affirming for a lot.
Yeah, I think that is important. We serve over 22,000 people in our 37 county region every year. And what our patients can rely on is that they're going to come in and receive compassionate, non-judgmental, confidential care, and that they will have all of their options provided to them in a safe way. And then the patient gets to decide, right? The patient decides what's the best path for them, what's the right birth control, whether they want to have an abortion or not. The most important thing is that people have all the information they need to make the best decision for them in a compassionate setting with medically accurate information.
And I personally believe that a lot of the anti-Planned Parenthood mindset is because they don't understand the amount of freedom of choice your organization provides to individuals, because it's a safe environment where they can fully understand all of their options. And I think that's such a great way to talk to people that have concerns.
Absolutely. And I think, as we confront stigma around abortion and people who are opposed to abortion, the fact is that the majority of Americans, and in fact, Pennsylvanians, support safe and legal abortion and want that to remain a right that's available to people. And then there are a lot of people who are kind of in the mushy middle and aren't sure how they themselves would feel about it if it was somebody in their family or themselves. But the fact is that when you talk to people about whether or not a stranger should insert themselves in that decision, then by and large, they're like, no way, no way. That's my decision to make. And that's where we find that alignment.
Absolutely. And having the freedom to choose. So you spoke nationally about what's happening in Pennsylvania and even locally. For those of us that need and want to take action, what would you consider our first steps, and what would you like us to do immediately?
Sure. Well, there are so many things we need to do immediately because we absolutely, hair's on fire right now. Like, it's bad. So one is to reach out to your state elected officials and demand that they repeal restrictions and pass protections to make abortion more accessible. Put them all on notice. Let them know they cannot interfere in our reproductive freedom. Secondly, we want supporters to support abortion access. Give money to abortion providers, abortion funds, whether that's Planned Parenthood or the Mississippi Freedom Fund or the Yellowhammer Fund, but really help fund abortion access for those people who may have trouble with finding the resources they need to get the care they need. And then we would really like folks to call on Congress right now. Brian Fitzpatrick would be a perfect person to talk to protect and expand abortion access, and demand that the Senate pass the Women's Health Protection Act. So Senator Casey, we've been talking to him quite a bit about it. As you all probably know, he's historically not been a supporter of abortion care. However, knowing that Roe is really on the table and at risk, he has been more open to hearing arguments in support of Women's Health Protection Act. Again, not making that decision for someone else, not having the politicians interfere with that, but guaranteeing access. So call on your members of Congress to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. So those are some of the highlights that I wanted to share of ways people can take action. Besides, of course, talking to your friends and families about it, right? We're in the holidays, we're spending time with people. Help get rid of abortion stigma. Share your story if you're comfortable. Talk to them about meeting in the middle and find it, and that there's no room for other people to make those medical decisions for one another when it comes to abortion.
And I think, just to reiterate a point that I heard you said that really resonated with me, it's as almost more about the right to make that decision than even what that decision is. So we don't want somebody else telling us what to do with our bodies. And that's why we're fighting so hard, as well as making sure that women are constantly able to get the services they need in a safe way.
That's exactly right. During the arguments today, Justice Coney Barrett was talking about adoption as an option, how important that was. And, if that was available, then what's the big deal, basically, to force women to carry pregnancy? So adoption is a wonderful choice for a lot of people. And I think that it should be available, but it doesn't take into account the very real health implications of carrying a pregnancy to term for people. And in Mississippi, it's 75 times more dangerous for a person to give birth than it is for them to have an abortion. 75 times more dangerous to carry a pregnancy to term. It has one of the worst maternal mortality outcomes of any state in the nation. And so it's not right, it's not fair, it's not appropriate to say it's no big deal to ask this of somebody. They can just make a different decision. They can become a parent, or they can put the child up for adoption. There are very significant health threats to a person's body to carry a pregnancy to term.
As well as to the unborn fetus, which could absolutely end up in a precarious health situation and have a much more difficult time being adopted. But they're the
Right.
statistics that people don't talk about the kids that are very hard to adopt.
Well, those same states, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, that's also where infant mortality rates are the highest. And no surprise, they're highest in communities of color. And that is a direct result of white supremacy that continues to happen in our country every day, and historic racism. And so those are the communities that are most harmed by these policies.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or anything else that you believe that is important for us to know as we move forward? I mean, it's a huge issue that's very passionate for so many people. I'm definitely hearing that the action is now. It's contacting our legislators immediately. It's fighting for the Supreme Court to hear what we have to say, as well as backing the Women's Health Protection Act. What else?
Yep, giving to abortion funds and then sharing your stories. We've found that when people share their own stories, that it really reduces stigma. And so really encouraging people to have those honest discussions about their lives. 1 in 4 women will have an abortion at some point in her lifetime. It is normal medical care. And when we talk about it, we help normalize it. And then absolutely volunteer for Planned Parenthood. We need clinic escorts. As I mentioned, the opposition is ramping up. So volunteer with us, become a part of our activists, come to rallies, help us phone bank, help us canvass. There are lots of ways we can get you involved.
It's wonderful. And I know, just from a personal note, as a retired educator, I would also encourage people to ensure that censorship in our libraries for any kind of book that displays families on the whole diversity spectrum are never taken out of our libraries, and to make sure that all school district boards hear that we do not want to go back there.
You don't, because you're so right. People need to see themselves represented, right? They need to see that. They need to get that reassurance. And it's helpful for others to see people like that and to gain acceptance and to gain understanding of people who aren't like them, right? That's how we build a better community, that we build that safety net and protections for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I see that we were very close to our time for today. I want to take a few minutes to share some gratitude. Thank you to the Board of Directors of the Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition, and to the issue specialists to volunteer their time to the following issues closely and tracking this legislation. Thank you to all of us who joined us this afternoon for keeping it brief, and to all of the supporters of the Bucks County Women's Advocacy Coalition. We speak with one voice, and all of you make that voice more powerful. Please visit bcwac.org to follow our work. And a very special thank you to Melissa Reed of Planned Parenthood Keystone for gifting us your time and talent and all of the wonderful information that you provided, and for all the work that you're doing every day to help bring about some systematic change. The time is now, and we really need to come together. Please visit the bcwac.org to learn more about this issue. We'll be back again together for Keeping It Brief next month. Please save the date, Wednesday, January 5th at 1:30. Melissa, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Jill. I really appreciate the time to be with you all today on such a difficult time.
Thank you.